what I want to do is just get to know you guys a little bit more, where you're at, so I can tailor this message to you. So why don't we start with everybody who has a website or whose company has a website, raise your hand. Okay, that's just about everybody. Secondly, I want to know if you guys know what your traffic is for that website. Can you give me some ideas? Like a monthly number of traffic? Do you know that in depth with your project?
Oh, yeah. I'm reading analytics is kind of the next step for what I'm doing.
Okay.
Just give you an idea of where I'm.
So you're going to get there to know what.
I think it's important to have an idea of, you know, when you do something or try something, see how is it working.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. So we need to have, the reason I'm asking this is because you need to have a baseline. If you're gonna start a project online and start to affect changes, you got to know that those changes are actually making a difference. So you said yours is just new. What?
Brand new.
Brand new. So your traffic is probably pretty low unless you had a pre-existing.
Yeah, it's very low. It's just a landing place now, so I can send people to it.
Okay, good. So yeah, like an online business card type right now.
A little bit more. I mean, you can make purchases now.
Okay, good.
Just
so it is.
Go here to do it.
You can put it on your card and stuff like that.
I could, yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. You heard the plumbing never works, the carpenter's house and everything. No, I don't use my website to drive my business, but I do create websites for chambers of commerce.
Yeah.
So it's very important that the SEO is sort of going to do track.
I know that story very well. Okay, who else? What's your? Do you have?
Mine doesn't really fit for e-commerce.
Okay. Well, this is for any type, so I mean, this would probably be even a little more relevant not to e-commerce sites.
So it's not something I try to identify. Probably zero.
Okay.
Well, I got a call out of New York the other day, but that was because I was tickling Pepsi back there.
Right.
So I don't know where it came off from there.
So what is your website? Who's the audience there? What are you gearing it towards? What's the purpose of your website?
It's primarily for food service industry.
So it's selling yourself to the food service industry?
Yeah, in the beverage specifically.
Okay. So it's again like an online information about you that they can go to and contact you.
Yeah, it's kind of technical backup. It has videos there that they can watch and talks about
how-to type things?
No how-to, it's just all what the problem is.
Okay.
Identifies the problem, and then they contact us, and we have to go out and see them.
Okay, good. Thanks. What about over here? What about Orange? Community Orange.
I'm sorry, can you say the question?
Do you have a website?
We do, yes.
Okay, what's it? And you're still pretty new, right? The magazine
we
boards
are.
have been around for a while?
Just a little less than a year.
Okay, so you have a little track record?
A little bit. We just haven't done much on there until just fairly recently, and so because it's in a lot of flux right now and just kind of got started, I can't answer like a good average.
Okay.
So we haven't spent a lot of time looking at it.
All right. So, but it sounds like part of your strategy is to take the magazine, the content, and to drive people either to your site or advertiser sites.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And Evelyn, do you know?
Well, I have the website and I wasn't pleased with it. Got another one. I wasn't pleased with it. I had one call asking from Colorado, and she says, I can't get this website to work. I'd like to buy your books. And so I don't know if other people tried or not, but I don't know response back. I started a new one a couple of weeks ago, and now I need to know how to do it.
Okay. So you've got a new website. Do you know at all how much traffic you're getting to your website? How many people visit?
Probably nothing now.
Okay.
Maybe it'll get better.
But you don't have your finger on that pulse right now. Okay. And Rebecca, what do you guys? How's your presence set up?
We have a tiny little corner. My program has a little corner of our company website.
A page.
Yeah, and I don't know how much.
Okay. So do you have any indication, like, do you have a form on there to get requests, or is it just here's what we're doing, here's our project?
That's mentioned in my contact.
Okay. All right. Well, it's good to know where you guys are at. So we're probably working more along this range, your first 1,000 visitors. The topic of this conversation I want to do today is how to get your first 1,000 visitors from Google. I put or 1,000 per month if you prefer. I didn't know where you'd be at, but this is definitely possible through what we're going to talk about today. Just doing a little more of it. That's all. Okay. So that is, and then one more thing before we get started. Do you guys know anything about SEO, search engine optimization? What it's called. And if yes, tell me what you know.
Yeah.
What have you heard? I'd like to help break some myths down or reinforce what you already know. Let's go here.
I explored it in depth with a group, Bruce Rowe.
Okay. Yeah, I know.
You know Bruce?
I've met Bruce. Yeah.
So I was impressed that he came from banking and was looking for new employment, applying for jobs, and he ended up helping a guy who was running his merchandise through a catalog. And then he actually self-educated in search engine optimization, and now he seems to be the king of the hill, and he's really locked into the how-to on e-commerce. And so the difference would be between a catalog selling and search engine optimization would be a catalog would be a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10, and the SEO would be an 11.
It's definitely a powerhouse if you know how to do it.
For a few years, I've talked to Strayer Gamers and let me come in, and because I was doing what I was doing on a complimentary basis, and to get the word out on their campus. That was the deal. And last November, that all came to an end. They shut down 20 of their 100 campuses because of the Obamacare. But anyway, I was just impressed with the publish on my website. From that point, where I was, really kind of like a website. You know what I mean? And that was about it. And now we're pivoting, and I'm working a couple of things. Number one, I'm looking at my website as the Earth with the social networks, satelliting around it, building communities, in each one of these, sites. And then what we're doing is, because I'm not there now to show this content, we're in the process of embedding audio in it so it would be clearer for somebody to just come in and see it. And then put a YouTube channel and some other things that we have. And so that's kind of where I am, with the idea that I know that once I get this going, there's got to be some way to find out, how pulling people in. What is the analytics? You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's kind of what.
Okay, so you're starting to write content for your site. We'll talk about that today.
Okay.
Some really cool stuff about content.
Right.
Yeah. You.
Okay, orange guy. I was going to say, I think the whole process of SEO is kind of like a card catalog in a library. The search engines are used to find that people are looking for the right information that they're looking for, or the right business or whatever. So the goal of Google and Yahoo and a lot of these companies is to really determine whether or not your site is the one that people are looking for. And so search engine optimization is about taking your site and making sure that it conforms to Google's patterns and Yahoo's patterns, so that when people are looking for something in your area, they want to make sure that your site is the one that comes up. And then the game there is to try, there may be a lot of other sites that might also match that, and so the game is to try to get your site to show up higher on that list.
Great. That's a great summary.
Except for, I would add on there, when you say they're patterns, you need to throw the word ever-changing in there.
Because people play the system, so Google and Yahoo can change their patterns of how they do things. Yeah.
Yeah, they have a very, Google has a very, and they all do, but when I say Google, I'm just using it as a representative of all the companies that do search. But they have very highly trained spam teams that do nothing but evaluate computerized results of what comes up and how people are gaming the system. they make a little tweak, and all those sites that have been gaming it will drop out. They
Yeah.
call that the Google dance, and you don't want to get caught doing black hat SEO. So everything I'm going to teach you here today is above board, is completely white hat, is completely stellar and exciting. So you had another comment about what SEO is, what you know
Oh,
about
no,
SEO.
it's just, he covered it, just a
Okay.
bit.
You know, what you were just saying a minute ago, there was a guy from Caseville side, older gentleman, who just could not understand this guy, and hooked him into something, and it was obviously black hat, you know?
Mhm.
And he was telling everybody in the meeting, I can't understand, I was doing really well, and now all of a sudden, nothing, you
Yeah.
know? And I'm sure that's what happened to him.
We'll cover some of those today. Did you have? Oh, you have another one.
I was gonna say, actually, the importance of this, I was talking with my next door neighbor, and they built their entire business with it's a family business, and his dad just sat there and basically did SEO all day long, and they built up quite a business on it. And then they got nailed for something, which he said, we still don't know what it was.
Mm.
But they dropped in their rankings. They were still fairly high, but it lasted them throughout that banishment or their penalty or
Yeah.
whatever. Now that it's off, they're starting to go back into it. But just because they were so ranked so high in the search engine optimization of the search engine, they built an entire business off of that.
It's very lucrative. I have many friends who have done that, who have also gotten slapped. I will talk about some of the reasons that you might experience that intimate. Very easy. And in fact, I exclusively work with WordPress sites to optimize them. There's some really good plugins. I can mention some of those today. And but I think the reason when I got into search engine optimization that I really loved it was, for me, it was kind of the first time I realized that I can put myself in front of somebody who is looking for exactly what I needed. You know, instead of looking out here, I even see Zip Up. It's a local search engine company. They have this billboard. Thousands of people drive by, see it every day, probably think, what is that? So they're missing. Sorry, I get worked up when I think about all the advertising that we can do that's push, that's get in your face. There's still a place for that, I believe, but with search engine optimization, somebody is thinking, man, I really wish I could buy X. I really wish I could get my life together. I really wish, you know, I knew a better recipe for my water, you know, and getting me into those things. And then they go looking for it, and you're there, and you offer what they have. So that's the exciting part of SEO for me. Did you have a comment about what you know about SEO? Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
WordPress comes up a lot.
Mhm.
If you had another site other than, I mean, if you were working with somebody, they had another site other than WordPress, would you recommend that they move over to WordPress, or is it worth the jump to it?
It really depends. If they're not dedicated to getting some sort of traffic to their website and making it their website a serious part of their business, then I would just say leave it what you're doing. I mean, but if you're getting serious about your website and it's still a pretty new thing, I probably would. There's a really large community around WordPress. I mean, I used to code. I used to take HTML and I used to code a website, and then I remember getting to this point where I was like, oh, that would be really neat if I could change something across every page of my site. And then I thought, wow, I'm gonna have to go back to every page and recode this and then upload it. And then the things that helped with that came into play. But WordPress takes all that headache away. You know, they're very good at updating their software to keep it regular so hackers don't get in. As long as you're keeping up with that, I'd say that's very important. I've had some sites hacked because I didn't update them regularly. And the other reason I wouldn't tell you to change over is if you already have somebody managing your site and they're taking care of it and it's not WordPress, just leave it alone. Yeah. You came in late. You didn't get a chance to introduce yourself.
Most of the people know me.
Well, introduce yourself to me.
My name is Rosemarie Howard. I have a small business called Dramatic Dimensions LLC, and I offer personal history writing services to
Very cool.
to people, and it is a WordPress site. I have 3 different WordPress sites, but that's my main business site. One of them.
Okay.
And I know the plugins you're talking about, they actually make it like, if you put the right words in, it shows you it's the right words.
Yeah.
The plugin that I use for it, it just takes time to go through it and make each page work for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very cool. So do you know how much site traffic you're getting right now?
Not 1,000 visitors.
Okay. All right.
That's why I'm here.
All right, great. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about along the way some of the myths. We're going to bust some of them down. We're going to talk about what not to do, which is just as important these days as we've talked about as what to do. You can definitely get some bad advice that comes from days past where it actually worked, and for some reason people keep teaching it because they don't know any better, and because Google is always changing. Yahoo's always changing. So let me start off here. Let's start off with the first, I guess you could call it a pillar, is doing some research. Now there's a lot of ways to do research, and Google gives you some pretty good tools. Has anyone used the Google keyword tool before? Okay, so you guys know what it does. Can you tell me your experience with it?
Well, it was helpful to a point, but I think when I create my pages, you have to. It's more important to be aware of what you're writing. I mean, I have to know what I want them to read.
Right.
I have to make sure the words match up with the most common search terms and combine that into my text in the right places. And
Right.
that's not always easy to do.
Yes. Yes. And what's your
Well, I
experience?
don't know if actually I'm thinking of the right one that you're talking about, but I've used one before where you could kind of put in a short phrase,
Mhm.
and then it will pull up exactly how much that phrase is searched,
Right.
things like that, and that can be kind of helpful to figure out how to word something sometimes. Sometimes if you go for something that is really widely searched, your chances may have less chances of being found than if you go for something that's perhaps searched a little bit less, because then you can really get those people that you have a much higher chance of showing up higher in the ranking.
Right, exactly. I just want to step back a little bit and just say, just to give a very broad view of SEO. SEO is simply 2 things. It's keywords. What is your target market searching for, and is it on your site? And then links. There's a lot of, Google actually has 200 or so different factors to their algorithm. So they're going to consider 200 different things. Anything from how long your site's been online to what keyword is in your title tag, and those all have a relative priority. So we're just going to talk today about the most important things. There's tons of things that you can do, but in the end analysis, they're going to look at what does your website say it's about, and then when people link to you, what do they say it's about?
You know, Ron,
And you can get us some trouble here. So
is what you're saying here applies to profiles.
yes, it does.
You know, because that's how they do work with search engines, by keywords, right?
Yes.
So everything that you're saying in here also applies.
This applies to all kinds of social media. This will be the same whether you're working on your own website, whether you're working on a YouTube channel. This is really killer for a YouTube channel to rank your videos in search. It works for any type of internal search for a social media site. So Twitter, you're going to run into these same issues. What's my target audience looking for, and other links to it. Other sites may have their different, ways that they'll take the keywords as their main part of their search algorithm, but then they'll say, well, how many plus ones does this have, or how many likes does this have, or how many whatever. So depending on what you're talking about, this is the primary thing. So we're going to start with research. The Google Keyword Tool is something really cool. But yeah, George.
How do you get to that? How do I go find that?
The Google keyword tool.
Yeah.
Just do a search for Google keyword tool. It'll be the first result that comes up. Google it. Yeah.
Yeah, they've optimized that.
Yeah, I have a friend and he actually he sends me a link that says, let me Google that for you, and it's a video of someone typing that in, and whatever I asked him, he'll just type that in and it will go and show somebody typing that into Google. And so now let me tell you one way to use this. You've mentioned one way, so just type in a keyword that you think your audience is going to be looking for. It will show you similar terms that you could use. But one way that's a little more sly, I learned from a guy named Brian Dean, who's really good, by the way. If you want to get some good stuff, look him up. Brian Dean. This Google keyword tool, instead of just typing in a word, because Google is going to show you things that are really similar, just really closely related to what you typed in. So it doesn't have oh, you probably wanted this thing and this thing and this thing too. Take a list. You can take a website and put that in there, and it will go through that website. It'll look at their keywords, and it will show you how many people are searching a month for all the phrases that they're targeting. So take some competitors and put them in, and you'll get a whole new picture, a whole new group of keywords. That's the kind of little tip there. The research. A couple other things you can think about with research is, are these phrases actually going to convert people when they get to my website? I know a lot of people, before they start doing SEO, before they start a campaign with a company or something like that, they'll do pay-per-click to find out if, when that traffic comes under that certain keyword, if that's actually going to convert. And then should I spend my money to get that optimized and ranked? So secondly, Google needs to see some sort of content, or they need to see some sort of page up there. So out of all you guys that have sites, what you snuck in too? What's your name?
Lisa Allen.
Lisa Allen. And what's your website?
I formulate mathematics about it.
Okay. I remember that now. And you have a website for it?
Yeah,
Sort of.
That's why you're here.
Sort of have a website. Can you help me understand what a sort of website looks like?
I have my products on it, and I probably need to describe them more. And I've started a blog, but I don't add things to it very often.
Okay. How come? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
I just
Okay. Well, hopefully after this you'll get excited about doing it.
I understand one thing people miss sometimes is they'll put a picture on there. And they'll think, well, that's perfect. Yeah. The picture just says it all, but not according to Google. You've got to have something describing that picture, I think, right? Like content.
Content, so yeah, to break that down a little more, it is text. This is the primary way that they find out what's going on. Video, they really like video, so any type of video embedded on a page will help your chances of ranking for any given phrase. So that's really cool. Ideally, it's going to be related. And if it's a YouTube embedded video, they can actually tell now what's in that video. They're still a little ways off of really understanding. They do automatic translations of the video, so they have the text of what the video is about, but I made a post on Facebook last week about Google Voice translating one of my messages, and it had about 50 hellos and buts and ums, and I was like, are they having a seizure when they left the message? Or so the YouTube's a little bit better. Oh, that's my alarm for giving away a prize. Just kidding. Well, actually, I have some chocolate if anybody really wants some. and the applesauce. Yeah, so but YouTube is better, but the chances of ranking are higher when you have content.
YouTube owns.
Google owns YouTube.
I mean, okay. So what you're saying is when you put that on there, they don't have to go through it. They know what's in there. It's been done, right? So they can go to it and say, here it is. You know what I mean? It's got
They-
keywords in it or whatever.
Yes and no. Google's really good at finding your content. So video or no video, they're gonna find you. They're gonna find you. It's kind of scary, but okay. So content. Let's go a little bit into the content. So the very very basic SEO, and then I'll get into some funner part of SEO. So taking your keywords. There's a couple key places you're going to want to have them. So who uses a WordPress site? Just for keywords. Okay, that's cool. So let's, you were probably using WordPress SEO, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, good for you. This is done by a guy who does such great work that WordPress actually brings him on to consult and teaches people about WordPress. He has a plugin for video as well, very cool. It helps get your videos ranked if you're creating content with video in it on YouTube or anywhere. It just helps get your video content ranked. So the key places that this is going to help you solve, or if you don't have it, which you should, are the title tag. That's the #1 place Google is going to look to determine what your website's about.
You're saying for image and video?
Yeah, any type of these are, what I meant by this is you're going to have text on your content.
Okay.
Your content's going to be text, but make sure to embed images and video. They're really keen about helping the user have the best experience. So if you just think, oh, Google's a search engine, they're a robot, they want a whole bunch of words, I'm just going to do that, then the people who visit your site are going to go away because their experience is not good.
Yeah.
And Google actually tracks that. You'll
Are you saying it's better to embed video then than to play one off of your own, like that you're hosting yourself?
No, I'm not saying. I'm just saying by embed, I just mean put a video on the
Okay,
page.
just make sure there's a one there.
Yeah. So title tag is the most important place to have that. Of course, make sure to have it in the body, of your copy. One thing that used to be really popular was to keyword stuff. Keyword stuffing was just making sure the keyword was in your page as much as you could have it there. That's poor practice. Don't do that. Just write for a human, but make sure the keyword's in there. And then let me give you 2 different strategies for really killer content. So the first thing you can do is take your keyword, do a search for it in Google, and just do a spot check of the top 10 sites. What's ranking already? Okay, you've got all those pages. They're ranking for a reason. They might have for your keyword, they might be lists of things. Top 20 ways to do X. They might be very image heavy. If it's a wedding site, for example, they might be a lot of pictures. So just make a couple notes about what that top content is ranking for, and then you're going to go back and create some content that just totally smashes it out of the park. So if they have a list of 20 things, you're going to make a list of 40 things, and make sure to have the images in there. So you're creating content that's already really good. Secondly, so you look at what's ranking. Secondly, you're going to outdo it. So that's one strategy to create the content. And then the third part of search engine optimization that I see very few people do really well is promotion. So there's this idea that if I build something that people are just going to, somehow the birds are going to be chirping about it, and I'm going to have all these people rush to my website. And it's just, if they build it, they will come. It's not true for search engines. So what would you say?
Is it field of dreams?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how he got it to work. It's definitely not true online with websites. That's true. That's true.
Isn't it kind of like, in a profile, going back to profiles for me, somebody will put in a job title, and it's just flat. But then they get smart and do what you're talking about, and they say, I do this.
Yeah.
And you've got the keywords in, and all of a sudden it just brightens the thing, right?
Yeah. And people do find you. I find people find my LinkedIn profile all the time because of the phrases I have in there. And I'm mindful of that. The third thing to do is your promotion strategy. Let's go back to this idea of links. So these are the two things that make up SEO. A common thing to do to get links is to go and submit your website to a bunch of directories online. That's a very low risk way of getting links. So make sure to get ready to cross that out in just a second, because that's a no-no.
Oh.
Anything that you can do online to get a link that is not gone through some sort of editorial process means to Google that it's very easy and it can be manipulated very, very readily. So if I can go onto a forum, for example, and post 1,000 posts on any forum that's just open, and I can put my link in there, they know about those. If there's a website for articles that you can just go post an article there, they know about that, and they've since downgraded the importance of those types of sites. So your promotion, this is what I think is really cool. And I don't know if you guys will think it's really cool, but just trust me, it's really cool. So when you have this content that outdoes whatever's ranking, it's cool and it's better than anything out there. But now you have to go to the people who were linking to those pieces of content and say, hey, I saw you wrote something about this other post, and I just want to let you know I've got this thing out now. And they look at it, and it way outdoes what they already have. So you're not necessarily asking for a link directly, but you're just letting them know. I'm letting you know. There is a site. I'd have to check this. I can send this to you guys. Ahrefs.com, I believe. And they have a tool, or alternatively, you can go to Open Site Explorer.
Is it Ahrefs or Ahrefs?
How do you spell it?
Thank you.
Yeah. Referring to the HTML.
Yes, you're right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry.
No, that's perfect. So for some reason your brain gets twisted when you're writing on the board.
So it's, what is it?
Yeah.
Is that AHREFS?
Yes. You got that? This one, let me write this a little bit better, is Open Site Explorer. .com. Now what these two sites are going to do for you is you're going to take those top 10 pages that you just found for the keyword you're trying to rank for. The keyword that you just wrote content around, it's going to outdo all of those top 10. And you're going to one by one go through these tools and look for all the people that are linking to these. So these sites will tell you the backlinks to any given page on the web. And what you're going to do is find those and contact those people. Now, ideally, if they have a phone number, anytime that you break the tradition of the standard conventions, people are like, oh, I didn't expect a call from somebody asking, tell me about the content. But because it stands out so much, you're a lot more likely to get them to do something about it. So if you can find a phone number, I'd call them up and just let them know. Secondly, I would have an email template that you can just short. It just says, hey, I noticed you like this kind of stuff. You're writing about it. You link to it here. I just wanted to let you know about a resource I just created, and I think you might like it. You might also say something nice to them at the beginning. I really like your site because that, whatever. But then you just start sending those out. And I find that even in the early days of search engine optimization, contacting website owners was still one of the best ways. It was very tedious, but when easier ways came along and everybody started jumping on those because they were easier, you didn't have to email people and wait and wonder if they were going to do anything about it. That's when trouble started happening, So this is one way. So number two, let's see, where can I go with this? Let me come over here. Number 2 way to do content is to, again, go to the top 10, where am I pointing at? Sorry, you guys, if I'm confusing it. Go to the top 10 searches that you found for a keyword. Go to those sites and ask people. You can either do some sort of interview style, or you can just take some sort of teaching or concept from their website and combine it into a group type of post, a review, I guess you'd call it a review post. Then you take all those things that you've written about, and you take all the people, and then you just start notifying them. Hey, I really appreciate what you're doing and what you've written. In fact, I just put you in an article. I hope that's okay. I don't mind if I did that. And the tendency here for people is to go, oh wow, someone wrote about me. I'm going to share that. The other day, someone wrote about me on LinkedIn, and I was very happy to share that with other people, which shared her article, consequently. So let's call it a review or a summary. And these seem like very simple ideas, and they are, but as you can see, the main thrust behind all of this is contacting people. And you mentioned earlier, Sterling, about your site being this home base of sorts, and your social media profiles or communities being satellites to that.
Right.
That's very good, and this is a similar concept. It's about community, it's about interaction, it's about building those relationships. This can build a relationship really well. I mean, when you tell someone they've written about them, all of a sudden they're like, wow, people don't really do that a lot. So those are the main 3 things about SEO, and I would like to tell you some don't do's. Does anybody know any don't do's off the top of their heads?
Would spam be a word that would be?
Yeah, how would you spam someone in SEO?
Well, I think one of the problems as you're building the community, you have to realize that not everything you send out is a sales call. You know what I mean? That you're creating. Well, it's like Jason Allen has JoeJobber.com. He told me, he said, he has 100,000 people now on his website, etc. He said the day he published a book, and he was, introduced as an author, it made all the difference in the world. So it's kind of the same way. When you're building this community, what you're trying to do in the community is to reach out in a positive way to help people. And not every time you reach out should be a sales call. If every time you reach out is a sales call, then they're going to say, "There's spam,"
Yeah. So how would that relate to content you're writing on your site?
I think that you want people to come to the site, not only just, I'm a nonprofit. I'm fine, just because that's the way I do it. But if I were selling things, I would say, I would want to be recognized as maybe an expert in the field, so they'd come to the site to see what I had to say about something, and then the next step would be, wow, this is great, I think I'll purchase it.
Right.
But when you reverse it, you're bringing them in for a hard sell, and sometimes that can miss that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense. So what you're saying is the content that you're creating is providing value rather than pitching a sell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And building the community.
And this really does that. These 2 methods really take that on.
But the email can also be, my experience with my website has been a lot of people spam with email, random gibberish that just comes and or tries to promote what they are offering, or that's the ugly.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, I think what you said there is personalized is so much different than just a spam email or whatever. If you're talking to these other sites, making it personal really comes across differently than just, it's somebody just hit me up for something.
Yeah. Yeah, and if I mean, it's already going to be personal because you have a very specific reason you're contacting them. It's not like, hey, I like your site, link to me, and you send it to 1,000 people. You know? Another way that you can kind of get past this filter that some people have on about spam emails. I get those all the time. I get, I have $500,000 for you to deposit in your bank. Just give me your account information.
Yeah, right.
And so to get past some of those filters that people have on, what I like to do too is I like to reach out to them in other ways. They're on other networks. Say, hey, I just want to let you know I just wrote about your site, or I have some new content that you might like. I send you an email about it. Just thought you might like it. You might also.
Twitter teaches is such a great. When I open something up and somebody's written a book, I have no time.
Yeah.
You see,
Especially if you don't know them.
Pardon me?
Especially if you don't know them.
That's right. I don't know this guy, and he's written a book. But I love Twitter for the idea that you have to say, okay, how can I do this in this many words?
Yeah.
And I totally agree with it. I think it's another way, and a good other way, you know, get out there.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, I've been trying to remember this guy's name. He's written a couple of books that are bestsellers. He talks about promoting yourself as an artist. And one of the things he suggests is a networking technique, but it's basically blogging.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't put out your whole artistic idea. You just write about what you're doing, throw it out there, and then ask questions and create a community of people working in a similar area. And anyway, he gives some really good examples of how he's influenced and been influenced just by blogging and Twitter.
Yeah. It's not the actual end thing, but she talks about her process of
Right,
putting
it's
that
a
together.
process, because you don't want to give away your store, but you want to share what you're doing, your process.
Yeah. What was your name again?
KP.
KP. Have you thought through an idea of how you're going to use your website to promote yourself as a speaker?
I have, and I'm changing it all.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What
It's funny.
What is it going to be?
Actually, I as I'm sitting here, I have my mind just kind of churning around a lot of ideas.
There you go, Ronnie.
That's kind of how I work.
I churn too.
So it's really, I'm sitting here identifying people that I know in the industries I've worked with that I can quickly write some stuff. I know that, and it's funny because I don't want it to sound like I'm just after their list or whatever, but I know they're established and they have great content, great following, and already I know that there's things I can write from them and what I've learned from them, just to go back to them and mention them and just all of a sudden tie it in. I just need to have the website that's all ready to capture that on the back end.
Yeah, totally. I was going to say these are two concepts. The third concept that you're bringing up is guest posting. So every time Google comes out and says don't do X, Y, and Z, which they recently came out and said don't do guest posting, there's always a black hat way of going about it, and then there's always a white hat way. So for example, early days, people used to trade links. Hey, give me a link and I'll give you a link. It's called reciprocal linking. I found, even though people all around me were dropping out of the rankings because of doing that, they were doing it spammy. They would have this whole list of sites on their website that had no relation to what they were doing. I was exchanging links one for one for people who are directly in my niche, and it really helped me. So in this, guest posting is good if you're going with a site, again, that has to be reviewed. I have to get permission from my friend to put this article up, and he did it, and it's directly related to his readers, and that's great. And then you could have a bio at the bottom just with a link to your site. That's not a big deal. That's really good, actually. That's one of the better ways to promote. I would add that to any.
Well, and it's the cross-pollination of the days of buying somebody's list is kind of gone, and it's more of the let's come work together on something, and then I'll pick up people from your site that will follow me.
Yeah.
Not so much an SEO thing as much as a list building, but
Well, it does both,
yeah.
which is the cool part. That's a really cool part. So you're getting in front of audiences. I've got a really cool webinar that I do teach people how to do a promotion strategy. I think you might like. It's for the authors and whatever. And there's some really good cross-pollinating strategies like that. So, yeah, I don't know if that if we're going to pay attention to the number, I'll just end with this, then your keyword research, it's going to tell you numbers, how many people are going to research, how many people are searching for that phrase each month. You just want to create a list that has enough to reach 1,000 a month. And then you just start writing content on that. One way I like to do it is I like to come up with like 52 or 26 different topics to write around, and then I just put that in. That becomes my editorial calendar for the year. And each week or every other week, I'm writing something, and once that goes out, I'm promoting it the rest of the time. So I would say probably 1/3 writing, 2/3 promoting. You have a good mix as to what's going to bring you traffic from search engines. And wow, there's so much to this world. But
you got emails down here, and one thing I remember Chuck Chamber, I think you know Chuck, don't you?
yeah,
He used to be a blogger, so he got some good stuff. But he came in and did some interesting things on constant contact, things that I hadn't even thought about, and that was those legal things that you can and cannot do. And it was amazing to me. You just got to be knowledgeable about what you're talking to us here today.
Yeah.
To cross the line and not even know it, right?
Right. If you know people in your industry, like if you have vendors, if you have partners you're working with, those are really good places to get links from. Sometimes it's just you just miss that, but they're really easy links to get. If you have some sort of alumni association with your school, they often have bios. You can get links to your website through there. If you Yeah, these are good ways. Sometimes the promotion will take you to talk with really big sites. I actually use some of these strategies to get links from about.com, which is a really well-known and established site. And they, because I just emailed the editor there, they put a link up because my content was relevant for their stuff. So yeah, I'll leave it at that for now. And it'd be awesome to hear you guys try some of this stuff. Try one article, see what happens. Do that. Write it 1 week, the next week promote it, and let me know what happens. Thanks.
Thank you.